We're going to get more perspective on the plight of women in Ukraine. And I'm joined live by Ukrainian Member of Parliament, Sovsun. Welcome to our program. I really appreciate you taking time and looking at where you are right now. I know it's first thing in the morning. I have to begin by asking you, how are you? Are you safe? I know you had to leave your apartment atop a building in Ukraine's capital, and your family, your father, your son who's with his father, and in another region, your boyfriend is in the army. How are you holding up?
Well, thank you, Sean. I'm still with some friends. I still haven't seen any of my family members from the first day of war. I'm holding up. I'm trying because this is the war, and we just have to do our job. So that's what I have to concentrate on. And I truly, truly believe that as long as we continue doing our job, every single one of us, men and women, military and civilian, just as we were doing it the first 13 days of war now, we can prevail. I'm sure we can. So I'm trying just to concentrate on that, survive till tomorrow and continue doing my job.
That's so sobering to hear you talk about that. And we are in many ways focusing on issues with women. And what have you seen and heard with as many as 2 million refugees trying to flee Ukraine so far? And as we mentioned, mostly women and children. I'm sure you've heard some simple horror stories.
I know some people among those who left Ukraine, be it in the first days of war or trying to get into other countries right now. They're all devastated. They feel extremely bad. I know I was talking to some of those people who left for Poland, and those women were saying, we are feeling bad. We're feeling that we are abandoned in Ukraine right now. And I said, you shouldn't be feeling bad. Like, you are taking care of the children, which is absolutely normal. That was the first thing that I took care of the moment I heard the bombs exploding over city. There is nothing wrong about what you're doing. You are running for your life, and you shouldn't be feeling guilty, because there is no normal reaction to war, because war is not a normal situation overall. So I understand that every single choice any woman is making right now. Some are taking their children to safety and then getting into supporting and providing some humanitarian aid, because I know majority of women who got into safety in Poland, in Slovakia, in other European states, they all got right into humanitarian aid, and they are now providing medicines, sending food to Ukraine, and so on and so forth. Other women are going back to Ukraine, and once their children are secured. So there is no normal reaction to war.
Right.
Everything that everyone is doing right now, including women, is their way of surviving, and that is how we shall prevail after all. But I feel extremely sad for those women, and but also feel even more sad for those women who are still in those sieged cities, like in Mariupol, in Kharkiv, in Irpin. They are living in much more terrible situation, and they don't know how to survive this massacre that Russians are turning our cities into. So I just feel that Ukrainian women are extremely resilient. Many of them are in the army. I'm so proud to be a Ukrainian woman right now. I'm so proud of every single one of them, regardless of what exactly they're doing right now.
Let me pick up on that, because 15% of the Ukraine army is made up of women. I cannot imagine how much life has changed in the last 2 weeks, but I read where you said it has not come to fighting in the streets. But do you expect that?
Well, I did not expect that 2 weeks ago, but now this is the reality that we are living in. We did have street fights in several cities, in the city of Sumy, in Irpin, which is basically just destroyed by Russians. And what they are doing, and why there is such a big discussion about the humanitarian corridor and the evacuation of the civilians, is because the Russians are just standing so close to the houses where civilians are staying, and they're doing that on purpose, because they know that as long as civilians are in there, Ukrainian army will not be shooting at them from tanks, for instance, because Ukrainian army will be trying to save the life of the civilians. So they're basically holding civilians, including children,
right,
hostages in those houses, just because they know that they cannot be fighting Ukrainian army. When they're fighting Ukrainian army face to face, they are losing, because the Ukrainian army turned out to be so much stronger and so much more determined in what they're doing. that is why they're using civilians as a shield, and then they are trying to. That is their way of how they're fighting to Ukrainian army. So this is inhumane. This is terrible, and I so much feel the pain of the men and women who are sitting there in bunkers and watching their children. Scared and sometimes slowly dying. We had a case of a child dying of dehydration in a bunker, and I can't imagine what the mother of the child was feeling looking at her child and not being able to save her.
There's no question war is simply brutal. Now, you're a mother, but also a daughter, and your father has to be one of your heroes. Ukraine government has asked men 18 to 60 to stay behind to fight. Your father's 61. What has he told you about defense of the nation?
Well, the first day of war, my dad, they live close to Kiev, and my dad took my mom to the Western Ukraine to make sure that she's safe. And the next day, my mom called and said, Ina, dad is going back home. And I said, why? He shouldn't. He's like, he shouldn't. He said, well, go talk to him. So I called him and I said, Dad, what are you doing? And he, in full seriousness, he said me this, and I quote, I'm going back to defend the capital of Ukraine, the city of Kiev. I have some military experience. He was fighting in Afghanistan back in the Soviet times, not much of his choice, but he does have military experience. He can shoot a gun. And I said, but Dad, your knees are so sick, you hardly walk. He said, then I will crawl. I will find ways of being useful. So he got back, and the area where he got back to ended up the area with heavy fightings. And we were not able to get in touch with Dad for 3 days. My mom was crying. She was calling me saying, what should we do? And there was not really much we could do because just there was no connection in the area where he was in. And then 3 days after that, we got a message from someone next to him saying that he's alive and well. And then 5 days after that, he actually called. And he said that the Russians were really close and that he was really trying to do his best. He was trying to make the checkpoints. And then he was doing some stuff that he could do given his age and health condition.
Right.
And now he is involved in helping people get evacuated from a zone of direct military conflict. So he can drive. He has a car, so that is what he is trying to be useful as right now.
And we're running out of time, but I want to hear your answer on this. Do you believe the United States and NATO nations are doing everything they can to assist the people in Ukraine?
Well, there are two major things in which the United States and other nations can be of help. First of all, we are of course asking for a no-fly zone because those damn bombs falling on our heads are just terrifying. They're random, and you cannot protect yourself from that. So because of that, we are happy with this decision of Poland giving its fighter jets to Ukraine. We hope that will be resolved soon. I understand there are still some logistical misunderstandings and debates. Everyone needs to understand that every day we lose the lives of 5 children. So the sooner that will be resolved, the more lives we shall be able to save. And the second big thing we're asking for, of course, the sanctions. And again, we are happy with the US now, finally, second week into the war, announcing the oil embargo from Russia. We expect the European Union to do the same. We need full trade embargo with Russia. We need to make sure that it simply cannot sustain this war economically, because every single dollar being sent to Russia right now is not going to their teachers or doctors. It will go to buy weapons with which they will be killing Ukrainians. So we are seeing progress. We believe it's too slow, and the sooner the West will react, given the strength of the Ukrainian army, I'm sure we can fight back. I'm sure we can win. We just need support from the West with the sky and with the sanctions so that we stop these atrocities happening here.